Hi, kids. Okay. Hey, you should be looking at page. It's page 6 in your packet here. But anyway, um, we are going to start talking about. You guys did the PV equals nRT stuff, all that practice, because that's coming back. So you better practice it. And then we're going to talk about really how this applies to this unit. In this unit, we're going to be talking about really how like a gas combustion engine work, and they all work on the basic principle of a moving piston. So I have this chamber, okay, and this chamber is full of gas, and so if here is the piston that is on top of this chamber, okay, and inside I have a bunch of gas molecules. Those are my gas molecules, and they are going to be moving randomly around. So that this one might be going this way, might be going this way, this way, this way, this way, that way. Just a couple things I should mention, and we'll talk more about this later, but be sure that you draw all your arrows about the same size, because how fast the gas molecules are moving is going to depend on the temperature, and we're going to assume that the whole gas is at the same temperature. So that is my gas moving around in my piston, okay? Now this piston might be moving up or down depending on what's going on, and that's what we're going to be talking about next. So, basics, good? Okay. First, we will do this one here, which is isometric. Isometric means constant volume. Metric, like, hey, something's metric, you're measuring, so, like constant volume. There we go. But if we have PV equals nRT, okay, what this is saying, this V is constant. So that means I have P equals NR over V times T, where this whole thing is constant. Okay, it doesn't change, because N is a constant, number of moles in my gas, it's the constant, R is a constant, that's constant. And then V is, we're saying it's constant, so that V is going to be constant. So I'm going to really end up with, I'm going to graph something that looks like this. Some constant, I'll just call it K for some constant, random constant, times T, okay? Well, if I was going to graph that, where I have P equals some constant times T, that this is what my graph would look like. If I have P, T, well, that graph is going to be a straight line, okay? Or the slope would be that nRT, or nR over V piece, okay? Couple of key things just to keep in mind here, guys, is that at 0 degrees Kelvin, okay, my pressure equals 0. Well, 0 degrees Kelvin, we'll talk about this later, that means my molecules stop moving. If my molecules stop moving, then they don't bump into the walls, hence there's no pressure, okay? So that is one thing. So at 0 Kelvin, my pressure equals 0. A couple other things just to keep in mind, that this, if this is constant, then that means P over T is going to be constant. Okay, because that would equal N over this. Or if you like, you could say, sometimes you see P1 over T1 equals P2 over T2. So pressure, temperature. Okay? So that's the first one. Hopefully that makes sense. Second one is isobaric. Okay? This should make sense to you, because if you think about a barometer measures pressure. So if something is isobaric, constant pressure. Okay, iso constant, baric pressure. So that's, again, go back to our lovely equation here. That means P is constant. That means that I'm going to get V equals NR over P times T, where this piece is going to be a constant. So that if I was to graph this, V, volume, volume versus, let me just make sure you can see this is volume. This would be temperature, And again, I would have a straight line, just like my last one. This time it's saying at 0 degrees Kelvin, or sorry, Kelvin is degrees, sorry. At 0 Kelvin, sorry, my bad. I am a physicist, I'm not a chemist. But at 0 Kelvin, that means my volume would shrink down to 0 as well. Because again, my molecules aren't moving, so if they're not moving, they're not going to press against the wall, the sides, which means this is going to move down, okay? But, so at 0 Kelvin, then volume would equal 0. It'd shrink down to nothing. Or another way of looking at this, V1 over T1 equals a constant, okay? Or V1 over T1 equals V2 over T2. Again, volume, pressure, or temperature, okay? Boom. That's the second one, all right. And then the third one is going to be isothermal. Iso, same. Thermo, yeah, that would be temperature. So if we do this one, okay, that means my temperature is staying constant. That means this whole side is constant. Okay? Same number of moles, R's same, temperature's constant, so that whole side is constant. That means that P times V equals a constant. Okay? Or if you like, you know, you could say P1 times V1 equals P2 times V2. Pressure times volume equals pressure times volume. And in this one, we would try to graph pressure and volume. And this one, later on, you guys are going to have to figure out what the graph is going to look like. So, there you have it. Bye, kids!